Ukrainian drones had just penetrated deep into Russian territory, struck one of Moscow's most strategic oil export ports, and walked away clean. While the world was watching diplomats shake hands at peace talks in Geneva, to understand what just happened at Taman, you have to understand the economics of this war. Russia's war machine doesn't run on ideology. It runs on oil revenue. For the past 4 years, and sitting right at the heart of that corridor, nestled in the Krasnodar region, just east of Crimea, is the port of Taman, one of Russia's most important commodity export hubs. What moves through Taman? Everything that keeps Putin's war funded. In 2025 alone, 4.16 million metric tons of oil products were shipped through that port. Al Jazeera, that's not a number you can shrug off. That's billions of dollars in crude oil, petroleum, grain, coal, and commodities flowing out of Russia, filling the Kremlin's war chest, paying for missiles, paying for Shate drones, paying for the salaries of 800,000 soldiers standing on Ukrainian soil. Hit the refineries, hit the storage depots, hit the export terminals. In 2025, under pressure from Washington, Ukraine agreed to a temporary moratorium on long-range strikes against Russian energy infrastructure. Ceasefire of convenience, a diplomatic bargaining chip. It hit Ukrainian power plants. It hit substations. It weaponized winter. Russia matters. Russia had laughed off the moratorium and used every single day of it to strangle the Ukrainian grid.
Oh, the moratorium expired.
Somewhere in Ukraine, location classified operators from the Ukrainian General Staff's long-range drone units sat in front of screens. GPS coordinates loaded, flight paths confirmed. Target: the Tamanneftegaz oil terminal, Volna village, Krasnodar Krai, Russia. The Volna settlement sits in the Prymary district, a quiet industrial corner of southern Russia that most Russians would never think of as a war zone. It's nearly 325 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory near Nikopol. A deep strike, not an easy mission, but Ukraine had been here before, multiple times. Ukraine's long-range drone arsenal had evolved dramatically since 2022. The drones flying tonight were the improvised contraptions of the early war. These were sophisticated, purpose-built strike systems. There's a long-range one-way attack UAVs capable of 1,200-kilometer strikes. Flying terrain following profiles at altitudes as low as 60 meters, hugging the earth to evade radar entirely. Russia's air defense network in southern Russia is formidable in theory. Pantsir S-1, short-range interceptors. Book medium-range systems. Nebo-U radars that can track targets 600 kilometers away. But here's the dirty secret of this war. Russia can't be everywhere at once. And Ukraine had spent the past year systematically dismantling that network, piece by piece, system by system. The drones launched into the black. Flight time, several hours. Flying complex, pre-programmed routes specifically designed to exploit gaps in Russian radar coverage. Russia's Black Sea coastal region came under heavy drone attack overnight, with air defenses battling to repel Ukrainian UAVs throughout the night in the assault on the Krasnodar region. Some drones got through. At the Tamanneftegaz terminal, the first drone hit, then another, then the storage tank caught. 2 people were injured as an oil storage tank, warehouse and terminals took damage in Volna village. More than 100 people were working to put out several fires at the port. Then came more bad news for Moscow. Separate strikes on the resort city of Sochi and the village of Yurovka, close to Anapa, caused additional damage. The message was unmistakable. No corner of southern Russia was beyond Ukraine's reach. Ukraine's General Staff issued a precise surgical statement. An oil terminal in southern Russia and the Pantsir S-1 air defense system in the temporarily occupied territory of Crimea have been hit. 2 targets. 1 night, 1 in Russia proper, now 1 in occupied Ukrainian territory. This is where it gets even more interesting, because at the exact same time, those oil tanks were burning on the Russian mainland. Ukraine's elite intelligence unit, the Prymary Special Forces, known as the Phantoms, was executing a separate, equally devastating operation in occupied Crimea. The Pantsir S-1, Russia's crown jewel of short-range air defense, a system worth between 15 and 20 million US dollars, specifically designed to stop Ukrainian drones dead in the sky. Near the village of Kucha in Crimea, it was destroyed. The The Pantsir's one NATO designation SA-22 Greyhound is a self-propelled anti-aircraft system combining surface-to-air missiles with a rapid-fire twin autocannon. It can track up to 20 simultaneous targets. In theory, a nightmare for drone operators. In practice, by 2025, the SBU's Alpha Special Forces unit had destroyed approximately half, 48 to 50%, of all Pantsir S-1 systems in Russia's possession. Russia produces approximately 30 Pantsir S per year. But the rate of destruction in 2025 significantly exceeded the military-industrial complex's capacity to replenish them. The cost of each destroyed system: $15 to $20 million per unit. Think about that. Half the inventory gone. DIU reported that its special unit Prymary Phantoms had struck several pieces of Russian military equipment in Crimea over the past week, including a Pantsir S-1 anti-aircraft missile and gun system, a Nebo-U radar, and a BK-16 landing craft. On February 12th, Ukraine struck a Russian 55ZH-6U Nebo-U long-range radar station, estimated to be worth approximately $100 million near Yevpatoria in occupied Crimea. Also, on February 12th, Ukraine's long-range cruise Flamingo missiles struck a major Russian arsenal storing missiles, ammunition, and explosives in Kotluban, Volgograd Oblast. The facility belongs to Russia's main missile and artillery directorate and is described as one of the largest ammunition storage sites used by the Russian army. This wasn't a single isolated drone strike. This was a coordinated multi-axis campaign. Taman was one piece of a strategic puzzle Ukraine had been assembling for weeks. They were doing something very specific and very dangerous for Russia. They were blinding it and bleeding it simultaneously. Russia's response was what it always is. What it has been for almost 4 years. Drones over Ukrainian cities, not military targets, civilians. Officials in Ukraine's Odessa region reported falling debris from Moscow's drones. Damaged civilian and transport infrastructure, causing disruption to the power and water supply. While 2 women were reportedly injured in a guided aerial bomb strike on the Zaporizhia district. This is the grotesque symmetry of this war. Ukraine strikes Russia's oil terminals, strategic military economic targets. Russia strikes Ukrainian apartment buildings, power stations, and water plants. President Zelensky stated that Russia launched around 1,300 drones, more than 1,200 guided bombs, and 50 mostly ballistic missiles at Ukraine over the past week, targeting energy, infrastructure, and residential areas. For context on those drones, Russia's Shate drones are mass-produced low-cost weapons, designed to saturate Ukrainian air defenses and erode civilian morale through persistent nightly attacks. Originally Iranian-made, these drones are now mass-produced in Russia, using Western electronics and essential Chinese components. Investing.com and Russia had just introduced something even more dangerous. On January 11, 2026, Russia deployed a new jet-powered drone called the Jarin 5 with a 90-kilogram warhead, 1,000-kilometer strike range, and the ability to be air-launched by Su-25 aircraft powered by a Chinese-made Telefly jet engine with both satellite and 3G, 4G modem guidance. Russia had turned its drone program into an industrial terror machine. Starting in September 2022, Russia has launched approximately 40,000 to 50,000 type drones at Ukrainian homes and businesses, Al Arabia, and it had one explicit goal: weaponize winter, freeze the Ukrainian people, break their spirit, Jew, to the negotiating table on Moscow's terms. The next round of U.S.-brokered peace talks was about to begin. This was another round of U.S.-brokered talks between envoys from Russia and Ukraine. Had failed to resolve difficult issues, such as the future of Ukraine's Donbas industrial heartland, which is largely occupied by Russian forces. Zelensky said the Americans want peace as quickly as possible and want to sign all agreements at the same time, whereas Ukraine wants guarantees for the country's future security signed first. Senator Jean Shaheen put it in the starkest terms. We are going to be here again, because one of the things we know is that Russia has geared up not just for Ukraine, but to go beyond Ukraine. And EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas delivered what may be the most chilling assessment of the entire process. Russia was hoping to win diplomatically what it had failed to achieve on the battlefield, was banking on the U.S. to deliver concessions at the negotiating table. In other words, The war may be moving from the front lines of Donetsk to the conference rooms of Geneva. Step back from the individual strikes and look at what Ukraine has accomplished in 30 days, because the picture that emerges is not a country on its knees. Ukraine's campaign breakdown, February 2026. Energy warfare. Taman oil terminal hit. Air defense degradation. Russia produces approximately 30 Pantsirs per year, complexes capacity to replenish them. Total losses of Russian air defense systems by 2025 are estimated in the billions of dollars. Hitting Russian teams preparing to launch Shate drones at Ukrainian homes. FP-2 kamikaze drones hammered Russian flight crews and launch equipment at the abandoned Donetsk airport in occupied eastern Ukraine. It is trying to make Russia blind, broke, and burning one strike at a time. The math is brutal for Moscow. A Pantsir S-1 costs $15 to $20 million. Russia's relentless use of low-cost drones highlights a broader shift toward attrition warfare, but Ukraine has increasingly relied on targeting the systems behind those drones. On February 22, 2026, the world marked 4 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. 4 years. Think about what that means. It's 4 years of Shate drones over Kyiv. 4 years of artillery thunder in Donbass. 4 years of families separated, cities flattened, futures stolen. And yet Ukraine still stands. Russian independent media outlet Mediazona, in collaboration with the BBC Russian service, has confirmed the identities of 177,433 Russian military personnel killed in Ukraine. The actual total, accounting for those not yet identified, is estimated far higher, but Russia has not collapsed. In January 2026, 4,442 Shate-type drones were launched, of which 2,915 were designated as strike drones. The mean frequency of launches was approximately 143 per day. Also in early 2026, Russian forces mastered the use of Starlink internet connections to remotely control Geron-2 drones with an attack on a moving passenger train near Kharkiv in late January 2026, attributed to Starlink-controlled Gerons hitting the target. Latvia's intelligence chief issued a warning at Munich that should have stopped every diplomat in that room cold. He said Russia will not end the militarization of its economy after fighting in Ukraine ends. Russia has so thoroughly embraced a war economy that it may be unable or unwilling to reverse course. Let's bring this back to Taman. Because that oil port burning in Krasnodar wasn't just a military operation, it was a statement. Delivered in smoke and fire 48 hours before peace talks began. Ukraine struck Taman the day before Geneva. That timing was not an accident. Here's what Ukraine was communicating to Moscow, Washington, and the world. Message 1. We will not negotiate from weakness. Ukraine's long-range drone strikes on Russian energy sites aim to deprive Moscow of the oil export revenue it needs to pursue its full-scale invasion. The moment that stopped under the moratorium, Russia accelerated its own attacks. Never again. Message 2. Russia's war machine is not safe on Russian soil. Taman is in Krasnodar, mainland Russia, 325 kilometers from the front, and it burned. Message 3. We can reach your economy. Every barrel that doesn't leave Taman is revenue Moscow cannot spend on shells. Ukraine is waging existential finance warfare. Message 4. And this is the one that terrifies the Kremlin most. Ukraine is getting better at this. Every month, its drones fly farther. Every month, its strikes are more precise. Ukraine's new Bullet interceptor drone can reach speeds of 310 kilometers per hour, engage targets at 20 kilometers distance, and operate at altitudes up to 6 kilometers, countering Russia's drone swarms. And Ukraine's forces struck Russian Shate launch crews before those drones even took off. That level of intelligence precision didn't exist 2 years ago, so here we are, 4 years in. Peace talks in Geneva that may or may not mean anything. Diplomats talking, drones flying, oil tanks burning, Pantsir systems disappearing one by one. Russia bleeding financially while its war machine still grinds forward. Ukraine striking deeper, smarter, harder, but still fighting a war of survival against a country with 3 times its population and a nuclear arsenal it doesn't hesitate to brandish. The Geneva talks could produce something, or they could collapse. Latvia's intelligence service warned that Russia will not end the militarization of its economy after fighting in Ukraine ends, and that this could push Moscow to launch further offensives against European territories. Ukraine's military is executing precision strikes on Russian infrastructure with increasing confidence in reach. Russia is saturating Ukrainian skies with 100 drones per night, trying to break 40 million people. And somewhere between the flames at Taman, the burning Pantsir systems in Crimea, the packed conference rooms in Geneva, and the ruins of Ukrainian cities, still without heat, the answer to the most important question of our time is still being written. Will diplomacy deliver what 4 years of war could not? Will Ukraine's drone campaign eventually break Russia's economic capacity to keep fighting? Or will this war grind on year 5, year 6, until one side finally breaks? Or a ceasefire creates not peace, but a pause before the next catastrophe? We want to know what you think.
Yes.
Drop your answer in the comments right now. Do you believe the Geneva talks will lead to a real peace deal? Or is this just another chapter in a war with no end in sight? And if you want to understand every major move in this conflict before it hits mainstream news, subscribe. Hit the bell, and we'll see you in the next video.